What's the French Tech exactly? And is this a club, a private club? Is this an open community?
Thanks for starting off with that question. It's the one question that people usually feel a little awkward asking. So La French Tech is the nickname of the French tech community ecosystem and everybody that's in it. Whether you're a founder, you're an investor, you run an incubator, accelerator, but it's also the name of what I would probably refer to as a rather well-coordinated movement that's got two sides. You've got the side of the ecosystem where you have, of course, all of the startups, but also 114 official French tech communities all over the world, from Singapore all the way to Saint-Malo. And you also have, well, us. You have the government as well, which tries to do its own part in making sure that we hit the goals that the president set for us, which is 25 unicorns by 2025, but not at any cost, not at the cost of diversity, not at the cost of the planet, and not at the cost of territorial inclusion. So that's it. On the government side, maybe a few things to know about the French Tech mission is we try to be a little bit like the headquarters for all of the things that government is trying to do to move the needle forward. That includes everything from national programs like the Next 40 or the French Tech 120, which people will hear about later. That includes a lot of public policy like the French Tech Visa, which we'll also talk about a little bit later. And a lot of really great community or tech events like supporting Switch or whether it's CES or things like that.
What's the link, the special link with Singapore and with the ASEAN area?
Well, you can start with me, right? I'm from the Philippines. When you talk about Asia, you just heard the Minister for Digital Affairs, who's half Korean. My grandparents are actually from Singapore and China. So just to see that kind of Asian presence in the French Tech is quite interesting. Yeah, so we have 14 official French Tech communities in Asia. Beijing, of course, Singapore, more recently Malaysia, and more recently the Philippines as well. I mean, really every major tech hub in Asia. We also have 12 Next 40 companies that are doing business there. We're very excited about that. And it looks like, since Singapore is doing such a fantastic job, that we'll have a little bit more starting next year. So yeah, so there are a lot of strong links for very obvious reasons. I mean, it's been kind of interesting sitting in the audience and listening to some of the speakers really sort of sing the praises for Singapore. But maybe to add to that, I think some of the links come from what the Next 40 themselves have said is interesting about Singapore. So I've never launched a company there, but if we listen to companies like Voodoo, Final CAD, Miro, and that have set up there, they'll tell you that all the things that we've heard: great regulatory environment, super vibrant hub, great market. Maybe one thing that we haven't heard yet, which comes up a lot when we talk to our Next 40 companies, which is the presence of strong executive talent, which, as we know, is super important for any growth stage company that's really looking to scale.
You're talking about Next 40 or French Tech 120. What's the idea behind that?
Like a lot of people in government, very results-driven. The president said 25 unicorns by 2025. And we're like, well, you know what? It's not like there are like 2,000 candidates, right? There are maximum maybe 40. And if we extend that to the younger companies that have lots of perspectives for development, maybe they'll go up to 120. So we're like, well, why don't we identify who they are and give them the support that they need? Now, growth stage companies have very different support. So the way that the Next 40 French Tech 120 program works is that the companies are selected, one, only with financial criteria, only. So there's no one sitting around a table looking at people's applications, no jury, nothing. It only takes into account the largest amounts of fundraised, growth, and overall revenue. And then once they get in, they access what works a little bit like a closed marketplace. So all of the 120 companies have access to over 50 different, what we call French Tech correspondents, everybody from the Banque de France to the CNIL, which is our data protection agency, to the National Space Agency, to the DGFIP, which handles all of taxation. They all have access to one special person who's there, which we call a French Tech correspondent, and they help sort of move things forward. We all know that the state has a lot to learn in order to really be the proper wingman or wingwoman that startups need. We need to be super fast when it comes to regulation. We need to understand which services are priority for them, whether or not they're adapted to the needs of specific startups, understand the needs of specific verticals. And we also use the Next 40 of French Tech 120 to be able to learn through very, very tight feedback loops.
And if we zoom to Singapore, I heard that Singapore was launching what they call a tech pass, and Singapore has been inspired by France on what we launched before, which is the French Tech Visa.
What's special about this is, quite literally, any startup in France, whether they're French startup or otherwise, as long as they have an entity here, they can bring in anyone from anywhere in the world, no diplomas, no need to justify why they chose them, get them and their family in France in a matter of weeks. Even with the COVID travel bans there's an exception for the French Tech visa, and get them residence permits valid up to 4 years, renewable. And I'm saying this as an immigrant, right? As an immigrant who's had to apply for I don't know how many visas in my life. We designed it as kind of like a love letter to foreign talent, telling them that, hey, France is open now, come in France, work in France, set up your companies here, join the French tech movement. And so, yeah, that's where we're at. As for 2020, we're at a roughly 1,000 now. So, you know, they could have hired one person, or they could have hired 100.
What would be the message to the Singapore audience and to Singapore companies if they want to settle down a subsidiary in Europe?
There is this general vibrant global tech ecosystem, but at the end of the day, you really do have these two giants, which are China and the US, and then the rest of us are, you know, quite small in comparison. So the thing that I would invite Singapore to do is just a little bit more of what it's already doing. We already have great Singaporean companies in France. If we're talking about fintech, we've got Dothina and Upskills, for example. Both France and Singapore are great hubs. Singapore, a great hub for Southeast Asia. France, a great hub for the rest of Europe. And I think that we should encourage this kind of continuous mobility, both of talent, of companies, of capital. Just keep it going, really. We're already doing a pretty decent job, I'd have to say.
Very happy to be there with our French Fintech champion this year. I would like to say that our champions will really fit to the big stakes that are in place in Asia. First, we have 50% of South Asian population which is underbanked. Second trend, very important, with the Hong Kong financial instability, we see a flow of investment assets to Singapore. Then a third trend, very important, is the rise of crypto assets. The ASEAN area is the first area in the world in terms of volumes, in terms of transactions, in terms of dynamism on crypto assets. The first question I would like to ask, what is the value proposition to the ASEAN market?
So I think if I have to summarize what makes Ledger unique, the first is that even if we are at the very beginning of our journey, we are already super international. As we will see later on, Ledger is already present in three continents. I think the second thing that is unique in the value proposition for Ledger is that we are a mix, as we've said already many times this morning, between tradition and innovation. When you want to stake your crypto asset, what we've done is that we've brought the smart card, which is a French invention, to the crypto world. So we have used what has been created in France and which has been so popular, the smart card that you have on your Visa card. We have brought it to the very, very innovative world of crypto assets. We secure digital assets thanks to a hardware. Where everything is digitalized, we use a hardware and we sell a hardware. And the value proposition is liked because we are the first to be certified by the cybersecurity agency, the ANSI. We are the only device being secured by a cybersecurity agency.
So what is unique about us, about ForShare, is that we have created a augmented technology that allows companies use artificial intelligence to automate complex processes. So how we do this? This is done through a no-code platform that does not require to be expert in machine learning or be expert in software. And we apply this into the investment management and security services business.
I co-founded it in 2009. We launched in 2012 as an online lending platform across Europe. And we've transformed the business, extended the business over the last years to a full credit and payment software as a service platform. A few figures about the company. So we have raised $200 million. We have a staff of 370. We are part of the next 40. And we are one of the roughly 20 fintechs at the European level which obtained a full credit institution license. So that was about the company. But to answer your question about what makes us unique, I think it's the fact that we've proven both the scalability and efficiency of our platform for our own banking operations. So to be specific, we have originated 2.5 billion euro in loans in 5 geographies across Europe over the last 8 years. And now this platform is accessible to third parties. Then the value proposition is very, very quick time to market. So in less than a month, we can enable search partners to launch a new business value proposition. Then leading the way data, we use data, and especially thanks to PSD2 in Europe, banking history data, to underwrite loans. And then the last thing of the value proposition is it's kind of a full stack banking as a service. So not only the technologies, but also the license, the staff, and of course the experience in data monitoring and risk modeling that we offer to third parties.
We have quite a different proposition, and essentially Sagi is a platform for data engineers. And that means that we make it really easy for them to bring together very complex technologies, data technologies, to deliver and run data projects. So essentially, it enables them to build the infrastructure for a data project in a fraction of the normal time, and to maintain it really easily once it's up and running. So why is this important? Essentially because there are still today a number of many companies that are sitting on vast amounts of data that they're not creating any value from at all, and that need help to build these data projects. So a lot of the bigger companies hire data teams and put them in place, but actually data projects remain very complex to put in place because it involves a lot of people across the organization, and it just takes a long time. So this is where the data engineer comes in. He or she is a member of the data team, and basically the platform that we've created just enables them to get it running quickly. When it comes to financial institutions, successful data projects enable banks, insurance companies to better know their customers, to recommend more relevant products, to automate claims processes, that kind of thing.
I would like with all of you focus on your international execution, because in the past probably French companies could suffer from less international exposition and ability to execute, which is absolutely not the case for you, because you are really deeply international. So if I start with you, Amandine, you have delivered 2 million wallets around the world. So can you tell us a few more insights on your international expansion and exposition?
Yeah, so I think to answer this question, we have to differentiate between our B2C and our B2B offer. So our B2C is this wallet that maybe people know. Well, if you have cryptos, you'd better. This has been sold in 165 countries. So we have been international from day one. I mean, if you sell a device online, you run an international business from day one. So for the B2C, that was it. For B2B, which is more or less the same structure, but when you want to custody crypto asset on behalf of third parties, so what banks would do if they store cryptos for third parties, here we had to find some partnership. And the one that we found is actually a bank in Japan called Nomura, with which we have a partnership to bring the first big custodian for crypto assets on the market.
Miroslav, 10,000 phones are using Forcia. So it's big, it's huge. So can you tell us about your international exposition?
Let's say that our expansion started 4 years ago, not far away from here, Palais Brongniart at the Grand Boulevard at the BNP Paribas Innovation Lab. And I think that it was a very successful partnership between Forcia, a startup company at the time, and BNP Paribas, a worldwide group having a worldwide presence. And the next step for our development is the US and, of course, Asia. We're talking about Asia, where we are we're open subsidiaries next year, and also we'll work very closely with consulting companies to distribute our platform.
Geoffroy, you had a fantastic year in terms of European development. So can you tell us about your growth today on the international scene?
Yeah, today we are truly a European company. So 30 to 40% of our business is made out of France on consumer lending. We launched in 2012 in France, and since 2016 extended to other geographies. So now we cover 5 countries in Europe with 265 million customers, so quite a large market. But on top of this, what is really driving international growth is large B2B partnerships with global players. And clearly partnering with those big techs is going to significantly increase our international exposure.
Annie, on the Sagi side, I think that you work with 40 financial institutions.
Yeah, that's right. On our side, in terms of international expansion, we completed our Series B funding round in June and raised 25 million euros. And a big part of the strategic direction that we're taking post-fundraising is international expansion. And basically, what we know is that last year was a record year. 2019 was a record year in terms of spending for data infrastructure with $66 billion, and that Asian markets are a big chunk of that. Essentially, right now, our offer is commercially available in France and in the US, but we are definitely looking at a number of different Asian markets to expand in 2021.
I'd like now to zoom on what has been very specific this year.
Yeah, thanks for the question. So, because we didn't have any shops to close, you know, the lockdown from one day to the other was just like the offices were closed for us. The distribution of our product was still working. We had to adapt on the B2B side because we used to travel to do the onboarding of our clients. So we had to do online onboardings. But aside from that, I think what we've learned during this crisis is how important it was to be together despite the fact that we were separated. I think what we learned also is that you need to be flexible and to adapt the way you work. And I think the last thing that we learned is that we could rely on a strong distribution channel for our B2C products.
Within this crisis, we see there is an urgent need for digitalization. People are working remotely, for more automation is required. So what we see is that companies that were postponing their digital transformation from year to year, now it comes a moment where maybe it's time to invest more into this. We can do a parallel with crisis in general, because, for example, the last big crisis, which was the subprime crisis, was also a big accelerator, especially in our pace, for regulatory technology, as we have seen that after the subprime crisis, there were many, many new regulations, which then required companies to invest in new type of technologies to cope with these new realities. So I think that COVID now will create new realities for us.
In 2020, we had a growth of 40 to 50% of originated volumes versus 2019. But on top of that, we discovered, thanks to COVID, if I may say so, that our technologies designed for consumer lending could be applied to SMB lending. And we entered the SMB lending space. And in 2020, SMB lending will account for 20 to 30% of our volumes at group level.
I see this on 3 different levels. The first is from a business perspective, we feel pretty lucky to be a data player. I think there are an awful lot of people that have really suffered from a marketing perspective, because I'm CMO, we need to be even more results focused, laser focused on results, smarter with the budget and more digital than we ever were before. And then from a people perspective, I think it's about accepting that these are not normal times. It's actually quite complex to manage a team. Like, we're very, very used to working remotely within the company, but actually it's a complex time for everybody involved.
A specific message you would like to share with the audience, each one of you?
Yeah, I can start. So Singapore is on the top of our list for in terms of sales. So I would just say, just carry on, and I hope the Asian market is going to be even more dynamic regarding crypto assets, if it can be, because it's one of the top, really of the top region for this.
We think Singapore is definitely the place to be for us for our expansion in Asia.
The fact that we are coming back this year to the Singapore FinTech Festival for the second time in a row is just to prove that it's critical to our business growth. But rather just to share my experience about being a FinTech entrepreneur for now 10 years, a small piece of advice to FinTech entrepreneurs, you have to think long term. I mean, we are talking about money, we are talking about regulation, we are talking about trust. Either if you're doing B2C or B2B, more than any other field in technology, FinTech is a field in which you need to think like 10 to 20 years product.
But I think I'd like to start just by mentioning a McKinsey report that came out last year that revealed that high-performing companies, the ones that had been interviewed as part of the report, say that data and analytics projects contribute to at least 20% of their earnings and have done over the 3 previous years, which is a pretty strong figure. And I think that the message I would want to send is that we are available to work with any business that wants to create value from their data by providing the platform.
On the data, on AI part of your business, because it's absolutely key for digital lending, for compliance, how you tackle that?
Well, on our side, data is clearly transforming the business. Europe is more advanced than the US and in Asia in one field. In banking, it's sharing the bank history, so what we call PSD2, Second Payment Service Directive. So it's a revolution, because now customers can share their bank history with a third partner throughout the onboarding of a financial services.
I think at Ledger, our promise is that you're empowered with your own financial data, because we don't store the financial data in the crypto at Ledger. So meaning that we would like people to take back something that they have given up, we believe in the past, is to own their own financial data.
Data is a big challenge, and one of the challenges that we see is, we deal with a lot of unstructured data, and what is key there is to have the right level of standardization and to achieve higher quality of data, because whenever you have to automate a lot of processes for complex products where you have operations in different locations. These are things that we can achieve, of course, with artificial intelligence to process higher volumes of unstructured data and find the right data with the best possible quality to run compliance on it or regulatory reporting or any other process.
I'll try to give you in a few minutes an overview of our business at LG Group, what we do, why we're so close to Asia in our business, and why we chose France as the place to headquarter our international business. So very quickly, LG Group, we're the largest digital asset exchange for institutions based out of Europe. So we have a lot of clients that are hedge funds, asset managers, banks, companies that buy and sell digital assets, things like cryptocurrencies, stable coins, Bitcoin, and like these kinds of assets. So they can buy it on our platform in a safe and compliant setup. So that's our business. We have something like 60 institutional clients. We've processed several billion dollars of transactions. Something which is as well key in how we developed the company is that we're based out of New York and Bordeaux. So we have two teams, a team in the US, a team in France. We don't have yet a team in Asia, but we're very closely connected to Asia. And we started the company being the largest issuer of an ICO in France. Now Asia, the reason why we're so close to Asia, it's just because the way the industry, the cryptocurrency industry is made. So historically, there's always been a lot of clients and a lot of people in Asia interested in this space, which means that there's two hubs that developed in the last few years, one hub in Hong Kong and one hub in Singapore with a lot of talent, with a lot of companies, with a lot of capital. Our biggest clients are from Asia, or based out of Singapore, actually. Last but not least, the reason why we chose France, we're an international company. We have international clients. Actually, most of our clients are non-French. And most of them are based between the US and between Asia. So being an international business, it was important for us to find a jurisdiction out of which to operate that was strong from a regulatory perspective, that inspired confidence, and that was ready to accompany the growth of the digital asset ecosystem. And so what we saw in France was exactly that. We saw a new regulatory framework, the PSN framework. We saw a willingness of the government and of the institutions to kind of lead the innovation in this space with, for instance, a digital euro project from Banque de France. And that's exactly why we chose to be in France. And so far, we don't regret it.